Welcome back, my friends, to your recaps! The movie begins with Levon waking up in his car. We learn he sleeps there because he doesn't have a home. Then he heads to the construction site where he works as a foreman. He sits with the workers and motivates them to get started, and they respond with enthusiasm, getting to work immediately. Levon then greets the Garcia family, who own the construction company. They're a close-knit family who run the business together and don't allow outsiders into management. The owner's daughter, Jen, asks her father for money to throw a party to celebrate finishing the first semester. At first, Mr. Garcia refuses, thinking it's unnecessary, but eventually gives in and hands her his credit card because he doesn't want to upset her. At the same time, a gang shows up at the site and grabs one of the workers, beating him up over unpaid debts. Levon sees what's happening and tells the gang to leave the man alone so he can work. They tell him to mind his own business, so Levon throws a bucket of nails at them and takes them on in a fight. He beats them up pretty badly. As more gang members start to come in, Levon grabs a shotgun and says, "I spoke to you respectfully at first, but you forced me to do this. Leave now and don't come back." The gang backs off and leaves quietly. Jen comes out afterward, impressed by Levon's fighting skills. She brings him food and says her grandmother made it especially for him, knowing about his situation. Levon thanks her and says he'll always be there for her. After work, Levon visits his daughter, Merritt. We find out that his wife passed away, and her father, Ross, has been caring for Merritt ever since. Levon only sees her once a week, and she's always happy to spend time with him. She gets in the car and waits for him excitedly. Ross confronts Levon, asking why he's throwing a party at the house today when it's his visitation day with Merritt. Levon says he didn't know. Ross admits he forgot, but adds that he wishes Levon wouldn't see his daughter at all. "You weren't there for your wife when she needed you," Ross says. "You won't be there for your daughter either. You're a danger to her." He tries to provoke Levon into hitting him, knowing that would hurt Levon's custody case. But Levon controls his temper, takes Merritt out to eat, and gives her a gift, a picture of her and her mother. Merritt says she was starting to forget her mother's face because Ross removed all her photos from the house. Levon tells her mother looked just like her. Later, Levon visits his lawyer and tells him what happened. The lawyer explains that Ross was clearly trying to bait him into an assault charge so the court would grant him full custody. Then he gives Levon more bad news. The court wants to reduce Levon's visitation time to just 1 hour every 2 weeks. They believe he may have a brain injury from his time in the military, and they're also concerned that he doesn't have a home. The lawyer asks, "Why does Ross hate you so much?" Levon replies, "He thinks I killed my wife, but I didn't. She took her own life. She'd been struggling with depression for years." The lawyer tells Levon that Ross has a powerful legal team and that they'll drag the case out to wear him down. The best option, he says, is to negotiate. But Levon refuses and hands over $10,000, his entire savings, to fight for custody. We learn he's been saving every cent from his job for this. He then rents a tiny room with just a bed and a TV to strengthen his case. That night, Jen and her friends go out to a bar to celebrate. A gang member named Faber is also there and tells his sister Claire that he wants to kidnap a pretty girl for his boss, who runs a sex trafficking ring. Jen asks the bartender Mark for a table. He says he'll give her one if she tells him her name. She tells him, and once she leaves, Mark calls Faber and gives him Jen's description. Later, Jen helps her friend Nina to the bathroom because she's had too much to drink. Nina complains that her makeup is ruined. Jen tells her to take her time fixing it, and she'll head back to their table. On the way out, Faber ambushes her, drugs her, and kidnaps her. 2 days later, Levon shows up to the construction site. Mr. and Mrs. Garcia are distraught. They tell him their daughter Jen has been missing for 2 days. They reported it to the police, but there's been no progress. Carla, Jen's mother, says a relative in the police told her the department doesn't take kidnapping cases seriously because the chances of recovering victims are low. The Garcias beg Levon to help, reminding him of his military background, Levon declines, saying he's not that person anymore and that getting into violent situations could hurt his custody case. Still, he goes to see an old friend, Johnny, a man Levon once saved in combat but couldn't prevent from losing one of his eyes. Levon tells him about Jen. "She's a kind and beautiful girl," he says. Johnny replies, "If you're going to rescue her, you need to be ready to give it everything you've got." And God help those who kidnapped her because they're about to face Levon. Afterward, Levon goes to Garcia's house and finds him drunk, watching videos of Jen playing music. Levon tells him, "A lot of people have abandoned me in my life. My life was hard after my wife passed away and I left the military. But you, Garcia, and your family, you put up with me, hired me, and I consider you all like family. That's why I promised to bring your daughter back home." Levon then goes to the bar where Jen was sitting before. He notices that Mark, the bartender, is taking bribes from people and selling illegal substances to customers. Levon senses that Mark might be working with the gang and may know something. He decides to follow him after work. Levon watches Mark's movements and follows him to his house, where Mark is seen using illegal substances. Levon bursts into the house and confronts him with a weapon. Mark asks, "Are you a cop?" Levon responds, "You'll wish I were after what I do to you," showing him a picture of Jen and demanding to know where she is. Mark says, "The police questioned me, and I told them the girl came back because of all the drinking. After that, I left and don't know anything else." Levon replies, "I don't like liars," and drags him into the bathtub, choking him to make him talk. Mark eventually reveals, "The people you're looking for are dangerous." Levon doesn't care and demands more names. Suddenly, two of Mark's friends arrive at the house, hearing his screams. A gunfight ensues between the two sides. After Levon kills them, he searches their bodies and discovers they're from the Russian mafia. He takes their money and waits outside in his car. Several hours later, a car arrives carrying the Russian mafia boss. The boss enters Mark's house, sees the bodies of his men, and realizes that his money has been stolen. He goes crazy, wanting to know who did this. Later, a cleaning crew arrives to remove the bodies and clean up the blood. The Russian boss gets into his car, and Levon follows him. The boss arrives home, and Levon stops in the forest, hiding behind trees while taking pictures of the boss's house. Levon sees the boss getting angry at his wife and hitting her while she curses him in Russian. She then drives away. Levon breaks into the house, attacks the boss, and knocks him out. When the boss regains consciousness, he finds himself tied to a chair by the pool. Levon tightens the ropes, bringing him closer to the edge of the pool. The boss says, "You have no idea who you're dealing with. My name is Frizz. Have you heard of me, Levon?" Levon responds, "Yes, I've heard of you and your 4 brothers. You run the Russian mafia." Frizz says, "So you know who we are, and still you steal from us and kill our men." Levon punches him in the face and throws the money he took from Frizz's men in his face. Levon adds, "I'm not a thief like you think. I'm looking for this girl." Frizz curses in Russian, but Levon cuts him off. "Return the girl to me, and I'll leave you alone, Frizz." Frizz mocks Levon, saying, "All of this for a girl?" He continues to insult Levon several times, causing Levon to snap. They struggle, falling into the pool, and Levon leaves Frizz to drown. Levon later finds that he had recorded Frizz speaking Russian, where Frizz curses someone named Dimmy, blaming him for the situation. Levon wonders who Dimmy is. Later, Frizz's older brother, the bigger boss, arrives and sees the footage on the security cameras. He watches as Levon kills his brother and wonders why Levon killed Frizz. He suspects that Dimmy, Frizz's son, is behind it, and orders his sons to find Levon and bring him in. Meanwhile, Levon calls a police officer friend from narcotics and asks about someone named Dimmy. The officer warns him that Dimmy is part of the Russian mafia and advises him not to get involved. Levon responds, "I have to deal with him. He's trafficking people." The officer directs Levon to a bar where Dimmy hangs out, and Levon thanks him, not wasting any time. He heads to the bar, ordering a drink to avoid suspicion. But Claire, who is watching the cameras, becomes suspicious of Levon, thinking he might be a cop because he has a gun in his pocket. She instructs her colleague Frank to check him out. Frank approaches Levon, who hands him money, saying, "I need some drugs." Frank takes him to his boss, Dodge. Claire tells Dodge she suspects Levon is a cop. Dodge orders his men to beat up Levon, search him, and close in on him to intimidate him. But Levon makes them regret it. He grabs the first guy and breaks his bone, then proceeds to beat the others mercilessly. He's about to kill one of them when Dodge stops him and says, "All right, you've proven you're not a cop." After shaking Levon's hand, Dodge welcomes him and invites him to sit down. Levon requests to buy drugs from him regularly, planning to distribute and sell them in his area. Dodge agrees and arranges to meet Levon the next day to hand over the goods. The next day, Levon meets Claire and Frank at the agreed location. They point a gun at him and demand the money. Levon calmly hands it over. Frank tells him, "We'll contact you to let you know where to pick up the goods." Levon doesn't like the treatment and threatens them, saying, "Don't fool me again." He leaves. Hours later, Dodge calls Levon and tells him that the drugs are under his seat in the car. Levon retrieves them and throws them into the water because that's not his goal. Meanwhile, Weber and Claire have drugged Jen and delivered her to a client who paid to have sex with her. They've put her in a bag and are waiting for the client to finish. But suddenly, the customer appears, bleeding, and says to them, "She attacked me. She was supposed to be asleep. Take her and leave. I don't want her anymore." Later that night, Levon hangs up all the evidence and information he gathered. Dodge calls him and says that if he wants another shipment, he needs to meet his boss. Levon agrees, and they arrange the time and place to meet. The next day, Levon goes to meet Dodge and his boss, who, to his surprise, turns out to be Dimmy. Levon is shocked when he learns this and says, "My name is Bill." Dimmy asks for his ID to check it, and Levon hands it over calmly. Dimmy's man checks it and tells him the ID is legitimate. Dimmy gives him the bag with the drugs and tells him that if he needs anything else, to just send a message. Levon takes out the bag, leaves, goes to the bathroom, and disposes of the drugs. Later, Levon returns home and looks through photos of Jen with her friends at the bar. He notices someone who is focusing on them and appears in every photo. It's Vibber, the one who kidnapped Jen. He then finds Mark's phone and sees that he took photos of Jen and sent them to his colleagues. He flips through the photos and finds that Mark is with Vibber at Dodge's bar. So he goes to the bar and writes down the number of gang members present. But what he doesn't know is that Claire is watching him and sees him scoping out the place, so she gets suspicious and calls her gangmates. They head toward him to kill him, but Levon notices, steals a motorcycle, and escapes. They chase him in cars and try to kill him. Levon does his best to flee, but eventually crashes the motorcycle right in front of a police car. To his surprise, the police officers are working with the gang. They beat Levon until he loses consciousness. The gang captures him. When Levon wakes up, he finds himself tied up. Two men tell him that the guy he drowned in the pool, Grave, is their boss. Levon remains silent, then suddenly attacks them. Even with his hands tied, he manages to fight them off, choking one of them and struggling with the other. Several stray bullets are fired, and one of them hits the driver, causing the car to crash and almost fall into the water. Levon manages to kill both men, gets out of the car, and pushes it into the water. Meanwhile, the Russian boss, Yuri, receives the bodies of his two sons and orders his men to gather the gang council. He wants revenge. Then Viper and his sister Claire meet with Dimmy. Dimmy scolds Viper for what the girl did to the client, saying, "No client has ever been hurt by one of my girls, and this happened because of the girl you brought. I don't like anyone messing with my business." He threatens to kill him unless he kills the girl. Viper agrees and leaves with his sister. At the same time, Yuri meets with the heads of the Russian mafia and tells them, "Someone killed my brother and my two sons. I suspect this person is working with Dimmy, especially since Dimmy is missing and we know nothing about him. Yuri's brother tells him he knows where Dimmy is, and they gather the men to attack him. They succeed, and the men beat Dimmy. Yuri tells him, "Looks like you don't know that your father drowned, and my sons are dead too." Dimmy is genuinely unaware. Yuri shows him a photo of Levon and says, "This is the one who killed them." Dimmy is shocked and says, "I'm still working with him, I don't know anything about this, and I have nothing to do with it." Yuri warns him to be careful, because Levon is after him. Later, the Russian gang investigates Levon and finds his grandmother's address. They storm her house. Meanwhile, Levon gets a call from Merritt's school saying no one picked her up today. He's surprised and goes to the school to get his daughter. They wonder why Ross hasn't shown up, and Merritt tells him the house shows her grandpa is still inside. They go to the house and find it on fire. Levon bravely storms in and rescues Ross. Ross thanks him for saving his life. Levon tells him to go to the hospital and that he'll take care of Merritt. He takes her to Johnny and tells Johnny everything. Johnny says, "You've gotten yourself into serious trouble. Since you started with killing, you have to end it with killing too." He offers to help him with weapons and takes him to his private arsenal, showing him all the weapons he has. Levon chooses what he needs, says goodbye to Merritt, and tells her not to go to school and stay with Johnny until he returns. He hugs her and promises he'll come back for her. On the other side, Viper and Claire are in the car with Jane, planning to kill her. But Jane suddenly fights back. Viper loses control of the car, they crash, and Jane escapes on foot. She keeps running until she's safe. She sees a police car and stops it. The officer offers to take her home, but it turns out this is the same officer working with the gang. They take Jane back to Viper and Claire, who are about to kill her. But at the last second, a client calls them and says, "I want Jane for another night at Dimmy's ranch. I'll pay $1 million. Viper and Claire change their minds and decide not to kill her. Meanwhile, Levon storms into Dimmy's bar, killing Dimmy's men one by one. After finishing them off, he reaches Dimmy, shoots his hand, and shows him Jane's photo. He demands to know where she is. Dimmy says, "All this over some girl?" Levon replies, "I promised her I'd protect her. Give me her location, and I'll let you live." Dimmy agrees, saying, "Take me with you. I'll lead you there myself." Levon agrees, and Dimmy leads him to the client's ranch. Before letting him go, Levon asks, "Why her? Why Jane specifically?" Dimmy says, "Viper goes to the bar a lot and takes pictures of pretty girls. I send those pictures to clients. That's my business. I don't care where the money comes from. And if I don't traffic girls, someone else will." Levon asks, "Do you have kids?" Dimmy replies, "No." Levon says, "That's why you'll never understand." Then he shoots him in the water, killing him. He pulls out his weapons, ready to storm the place and rescue Jane. Meanwhile, Dodge gets a call and learns that Levon has killed a large number of Russians and is heading to Dimmy's ranch. Dodge decides to gather his men to go fight Levon. Meanwhile, Levon kills the guards and enters the place. Vibber and Claire have tied up Jen, and the customer wants to take revenge on Jen, hurting her the way she hurt him. But Levon throws a grenade into the place and opens fire on the Russian mafia members, skillfully killing many of them. The problem is that, after a few seconds, Dodge's men arrive, and a gunfight ensues between them and Levon. Levon manages to take out a large number of them, but then Dodge enters and fights Levon with knives. Despite Dodge being large and strong, Levon easily stabs and kills him. After that, he reloads his weapon and continues his path. He hears Jen's voice and follows it, entering the room where the customer is, and kills him. Now, only Vibber and Claire remain. Unfortunately for Vibber, his gun runs out of ammo, and Levon enters and shoots him. Jen strangles Claire with her legs, and Levon breaks Vibber's neck, killing him completely. Jen continues to strangle Claire until she kills her. However, to everyone's surprise, the mafia members are still not finished. Levon frees Jen, and they try to leave. but they encounter more mafia members on their way, and they open fire on them. Levon quickly handles the situation, throwing another grenade and finishing them off. They steal a motorcycle and manage to escape safely. But Yuri is still alive and calls his brother, telling him, "We need to get revenge on Levon." His brother replies, "Forget about the revenge. The girl he took doesn't concern us. If you keep insisting on revenge, we'll have to kill you ourselves, because the gang's interests come first." Yuri is forced to listen to his brother. Levon takes Jen back to her home, and her family is overjoyed to see her. They thank Levon for what he did. Later, Levon goes to see Johnny, gives him a handshake, and Johnny tells him that his mission is complete. Please, if you like my content, support me with a like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day, my friend.